This is Eagle News for Wednesday, March 24th, 2021. I'm Chris Wright in Washington. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell cast doubt on Democrat gun control proposals made in light of the recent shootings, saying the proposals are perplexing and would not solve the problem. The Boulder shooter was identified as Ahmad al-Isa, a Muslim migrant and ISIS sympathizer born in Syria. The Supreme Court agreed to hear argument on whether to reinstate the death penalty against the Boston bomber Dzhokhar Tsarnaev. The Islamic Jihad attack killed 3 people and seriously wounded 250 others. Government email shows dangerous conditions and negligence inside processing centers as the crisis at the border continues. The U.S. and the EU sanctioned Chinese officials for human rights abuses against ethnic minorities. China retaliated with sanctions of its own. Black Lives Matter protesters trapped 100 people inside a grocery store in Rochester, New York. Those are the top stories, details in the links below. Now for the Daily Skirmish. While many in the United States are preoccupied with the seeming importance of wokeitude, so-called climate change, and other fairy tales of the left, here's what they're thinking in communist China. A top Chinese Communist Party strategist gave a speech in 2016 building on Mao Zedong's plans for world domination announced in the 1950s. China's goal, the strategist said, is to surpass the United Kingdom, catch up with the U.S., and become the #1 boss. The task of our next generation is to put the U.S. under our jurisdiction too, the strategist said. He laid out a number of devious means by which China intends to reach its goal. First, create conditions for the U.S. to make mistakes. Second, we keep the U.S. busy so that it will suffer from depression and want to quit the job itself. In other words, keep the U.S. fatigued and demoralized so it will no longer want to be a superpower. Third, we should get ourselves mixed together with the U.S. so that it cannot fight us. We should create a situation where you have me inside you and I have you inside me. China and the U.S. are now each other's largest trading partners, so the strategy seems to have worked. Having our pharmaceuticals and medical devices made in China looks like part of the plan too. China's deviousness does not stop there. China waited until the U.S. got militarily involved in Syria and distracted by the Ukraine to build islands in the South China Sea. We only built the islands then. When the U.S. found that we had built such large islands, we immediately said to it, "Oh, my dear boss, we will stop it. We are not building it anymore." The United States was very happy for a few months. They thought, after all, the U.S. is still the boss. The speech also laid out how China would get its hooks into U.S. politicians and go deeper into the U.S. Chinese capital would flow into U.S. investment projects. We in the Chinese government hope that in the end, every U.S. congressman's district will have Chinese investment and China will be able to control 1,000 or several thousand votes, and then we can influence the congressman's attitude. You can add to this the entanglements of Hunter Biden and Joe Biden in Chinese companies and largesse. If all of the above is not enough to corrupt the ruling class and bring America down, the strategist has another way to do it. Of course, we can also have other evil tricks, such as throwing the world into further chaos. If there are 3 external enemies outside the United States, I reckon it will start to feel dizzy. If it has 4 enemies, it will completely get lost. So China's strategic task is to ensure that there are 4 enemies for the U.S. Terrorists are certainly one. This will keep the U.S. confused and inert and enable China to dominate the world with all its wonderful values like forced sterilization of minorities and re-education camps for anyone who thinks the wrong way or resists the dragon. This is how China plans to turn America into a wholly owned subsidiary of China and take control of the world without fighting a war with the U.S. The Chinese Communist Party has a long history of making statements about how they intend to target the U.S. and achieve world domination, starting with Mao in 1956. In 2005, a Chinese official said they had developed a plan to depopulate the United States and replace all current residents with Han Chinese. So you see, there are other things to think about aside from how to pay proper respect to each of the 57 genders. Time to get serious, people. See you next time. I'm Chris Wright in Washington. Thank you.